Welcome along. Transfer time. Darmish and Michael are with me. Darms, let's start at Manchester United. Tell us about this exodus.
Yeah, this is quite big news, actually. All of these players that you can see behind us, Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Antony, Malacia, have all informed, we understand, Manchester United that they want to leave the club. Now, as a result, Manchester United have actually delayed their return date to pre-season. The rest of the squad are expected back on Monday, July the 7th, to return to pre-season, but all 5 of these players have been granted a delay so that they can try and sort out a solution for their future. If their futures are not resolved in that period, then they will return to Carrington, to the Manchester United training ground. Not necessarily, it should be said, to reintegrate themselves into the first team squad, though we can't rule that out, but it is to use the facilities and use the medical facilities and any remote facilities that they have that all the squad would be able to enjoy anyway. But as it stands, those 5 players, Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho, Antony, Malacia, have all made it clear to Manchester United of their wish and their desire to leave Old Trafford. And the interesting one as well, you know when your futures might be not at the club you're at, is when your number is taken away. What we also found out this afternoon, Matheus Cunha will now have that number 10 shirt, the famous Manchester United number 10 shirt, which Marcus Rashford has had since 2018. Now, Cunha was done so early, you forget what potentially a huge signing this could be for Manchester United, and it looks like he will wear that number 10 shirt, and we are told that Rashford was told about this earlier this summer.
OK, so Darmish, let's just go through the 5 players in order and where you think they might end up or what their plans might be. And let's start with the ex-number 10, Marcus Rashford. Yeah,
the ex-number 10 is incredible, isn't it? Michael is so right when he says that. Nothing says that you're not belong a part of a club's plans, then, yep, there's your number. You're not having it anymore. There's your number 10 gone. So Marcus Rashford, we know, spent the second half of last season on loan at Aston Villa, returned to United after both he and Villa didn't take up that £40 million option to make that deal a permanent one. There haven't been any formal offers as yet, we understand, for Marcus Rashford to Manchester United, but we have heard about his desire to join one particular club, and that particular club is Barcelona. He would love to go to Barcelona. Rashford wants Champions League football next season. Whether he were to get that move to Barcelona, we know that they've got a few financial issues when they try and get deals over the line. That's another matter. But as far as if he had his wish, he would like to go to Barcelona for next season.
And would United take another loan deal, do you think?
Look, the ideal scenario for all 5 of these players is for Manchester United to get permanent deals done for them, because the way we're looking at their window at the moment is that they had a budget to bring in the likes of Matheus Cunha, and I'm sure Michael will talk about Bryan Mbeumo in a moment. Thereafter, they do still want to strengthen that squad, but it's felt that to really go big again in the transfer window, they would need to make sales. We do know that it's much publicised, the financial issues that Manchester United have got. If they were to sell all 5 of these players, you would expect Manchester United to be able to get between 125 to 150 million pounds.
Not if people know there's a fire sale.
But also, it's easier said than done trying to get permanent deals done because, and we mentioned Rashford in particular, his wages are really high. So would Manchester United have to entertain another loan move for Marcus Rashford and then maybe contribute to Marcus Rashford's wages for wherever he goes? Not an ideal scenario. They do want to do permanent deals for these players, but if there's a situation where they can get 2 out or 3 out of the door on permanent deals, there's still that option that a loan deal could be done for 1 or 2 of the others. OK, so Jadon Sancho, another one. Chelsea didn't take up the option to take him. Yeah, I mean, talks are ongoing between Juventus and Manchester United over the signing of that man there, Jadon Sancho. Discussions also continue with Sancho's representatives over personal terms. We mentioned Marcus Rashford on big wages, Jadon Sancho on big wages as well. Now, why are Juventus exploring a deal for Jadon Sancho? Well, one of the big reasons is they haven't been able to secure a permanent deal for Francisco Conceição. They had him on loan from Porto for the entire season last season, but it was a straight season-long loan. Now, at the end of the season, there's a release clause in Conceição's contract, which is 30 million euros. But Porto want that paid in one big lump sum. Juventus are trying to negotiate on that release clause. Porto aren't budging at the moment. That's why they focused a little bit of their attention now to Jadon Sancho, because we think the asking price is around £25 million, but it's not a release clause. It's just basically what Manchester United would want for Jadon Sancho. And if you have a price, for example, of £25 million, number one, you can negotiate on that price. And number two, you can maybe negotiate on the structure of that deal as well. So you don't have to pay a massive lump sum straight away. So hence why Juventus are probably having a look at Jadon Sancho, because the Conceição one is so up in the air just now.
OK, or just to make Porto worry about losing the sale.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes clubs do that, don't they? They like to send a message by saying, well, we're after Jadon Sancho because you're not doing business with us. But as far as we're aware, there is a genuine interest in him as well. OK,
number 3, Garnacho.
Again, no formal offers for Alejandro Garnacho. Chelsea have shown an interest. Napoli explored the conditions of a deal for Alejandro Garnacho during the summer's transfer window as well. But it's thought that Garnacho himself wants to stay in the Premier League. He didn't do himself any favours with regard to his Manchester United future, particularly after the Europa League final. He was on the bench and then he complained via social media, well, look, I played most of these games and I'm now getting 20 minutes in the final. Wasn't pleased, but the person who wasn't pleased most of all was Ruben Amorim, and I think that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back as far as Garnacho's future goes at United.
It's also a bit of a red flag for clubs that are looking at buying him, isn't it? That sort of attitude.
Possibly, but then sometimes is it a situation where where a player just needs a different environment because it's simply not working? He's clearly a talented player, and he's shown he's a talented player at Manchester United. It's just, at this stage of his career, it's just not working out with him at United just now.
Antony is another one for whom it's just not worked out since he had that trouble off the pitch, particularly.
Yeah, so Real Betis doing all they can to sign Antony. He had a successful loan spell there last season, of course. 9 goals in 24 starts. The asking price here appears to be the stumbling block here. We think that Manchester United would want in excess of 25 or 30 million pounds. Whether Real Betis can afford that is another matter. Como have shown an interest in Antony in this transfer window, but Antony has made it clear that his preference is to go back to Real Betis because they took the chance on him. The relationship with him, the fans and the players is fantastic, and he really does want to go back there. Bayer Leverkusen, another one to watch. They've shown a tentative interest as well. Who's their manager? Erik ten Hag, who brought Antony from Ajax to Manchester United. Erik ten Hag, who managed Antony at Ajax. Erik ten Hag. So you can see why that one fits.
OK, and finally, Malacia.
Yeah, he was on loan at PSV Eindhoven last season for the second half of last season, but he made just 5 starts in all competitions. When he went on loan, there was an option to buy him. PSV Eindhoven clearly haven't taken up that option, so he's back at Manchester United now. I think he's got a year left on his contract, but United have an option for a further year. So probably this is the summer to try and do business. But it's going to be a busy summer now for United, especially with these 5 players making it clear that they want out.
We'll come back to the 5 leaving, but Michael, let's bring you in. What about Mbeumo and coming in? Where are we on that now?
Well, we've said for the last 7 days we think it's close. Now that we expect United to go in with an improved offer, the discussions continue. That he's got 2 years left on his deal. The feeling is that they're not too far away. Brentford want at least £65 million, with most of it, if not all, guaranteed. Now, we heard from Phil Giles on Monday when he said that Mbeumo would be happy to stay if the deal cannot be agreed, which I found very, very interesting, because if you flip it round, we know he's been linked with other clubs, Tottenham, for example, and we're told that Mbeumo only wants to join Manchester United, but it doesn't sound like they're too far off. What it says to me, though, listening to all these players Dharmesh has mentioned, I'd say 4 out of that 5, how much of a say will that have on Ruben Amorim's incomings? Because it's not just the fees, it's the wages.
But also, you know, the fact that they've all said they want to leave, I mean, is that good news for Manchester United in a way? Because we've heard through grapevines that they don't want them anyway, and they want them off the wage bill. Yes,
but what you said before is interesting, because if they've made it clear that they don't want to stay there, what's that going to do to their price? Because clubs will know that Manchester United do want to sell. And the later you go in the window without them being sold, I'm sure clubs might see that as an opportunity to try and get a lower price for them.
Yeah, I mean, also, will these players go on their pre-season tour? Because that's when they're away for 2 to 3 weeks abroad. I think United are in this summer series. So that intrigues me. Or will they stay behind, play in the under-21s, localised games? So, yeah, loads to work out in such a short space of time.
So what are the striker options then, Dharmesh, for Manchester United?
Look, it should be
subject to them being some money available.
Yeah, but it should be said, Mbeumo, as Michael was mentioning there, he's the primary focus just now after they brought in Cunha, and then potential sales of those 5 players that we've spoken about, and maybe more as well. But they are still exploring a deal in the background for a striker. It's understood that Juventus actually mentioned the potential sale of Dusan Vlahovic, while Juventus and Manchester United were discussing a potential deal for Jadon Sancho. Let's be clear about this. Juventus are desperate to sell Vlahovic. He's into the final year of his contract now, and he is on absolutely massive wages. I spoke to Gianluca Di Marzio earlier on today, and he said that he's on 12 million euros net a year, which is good money if you can get it. And on the back of that, Juventus are still very interested in signing Victor Osimhen as well. You would think maybe Victor is related here, Sancho and Conceição, and maybe trying to bring in Osimhen. Would they have to try and get Dusan Vlahovic off the books as well? But look, Vlahovic is clearly a good player, and he's one of a number of strikers that Manchester United will have looked at. Another one that they keep an eye on his situation is Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. I think the initial soundings around that deal suggested that there was quite a big gap in valuation between what Manchester United would have been prepared to pay for Ollie Watkins and what Aston Villa would have wanted. He's approaching 30 years old, and I think this may be one that could rumble on towards the end of the window as well, not just Manchester United, because there'll be a number of other clubs who'll be interested in a player who's an England international.
It's the same old, isn't it? The merry-go-round. One deal gets done and then things start to slot into place. But right now, everybody is playing fast and loose, or is that just cagey? It's great.